Alright, everyone, welcome to Deep Dives with Dogs. Well, today's topic is about, in general, maritime disaster. The focal point of this is the SS Sultana explosion that killed about 1,800 right after the American Civil War. So, for those that are not aware, the Sultana, April 27th, 1865, a bunch of POWs put on the steamboat. It's going down the Mississippi, and it's returning POWs from the Civil War home. Uh, it explodes from a boiler that went bad and it being overloaded. At least that's the idea. Um, and killing about 1,800 people. This is one of the worst maritime disasters in history, but it's the worst U.S. Maritime disaster in history. 1,800 people, that's a lot of people. We don't necessarily think about it like, oh, the capacity of a ship. Ships, especially at the time of the disaster of the Sultana, are not like they can hold a lot of people, but they don't necessarily need to, and they don't typically. Um, and obviously, there are examples of where there are definitely worse maritime disasters in history. A good example of that is 1945. There is a prisoner of war ship that gets blown up. It kills almost about 10,000 people, which just I gotta say, just wild. That's a huge number. 10,000 people on one maritime disaster. So, but maritime disasters are obviously not a new occurrence. They have been a thing for as long as people have been sailing on the ocean. There has been maritime disasters. Um, just kind of happens with the trade there. When you're on the ocean, it's unpredictable. Not even just on the ocean though. When you're on water, water can be unpredictable. You never know what could happen. Um, the Sultana itself, and a lot of the really bad maritime disasters come from actually prisoners of war. And so it's even worse. You're this prisoner of war. A lot of times you're getting sent back home, and it's like, okay, well, at least I lived the fighting. You know what? At least I lived the fighting. I'm heading back. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. Boom! Something happens on the ship and you die. Like, what an awful way to go. It really is. The Sultana, obviously, it's like right at the end of the Civil War. These people are probably just so happy to be going home, and their families are probably welcoming them. And then it's like, oh, this happens. And then, if you're the party that has happened, that has that happen to them, um, you would blame the people that are returning them. You're saying, oh, they sabotaged this, they did that. Probably not, but at least in the example of the Sultana, in some way, they'd kind of be right. Not necessarily intentionally, like in the strictest definition of, oh, well, they were planning on this to happen, but laziness, really. The Sultana was overloaded. It should not have had as many people as it had on it. But there were way too many people. It overloaded the thing. Now, would the boiler have maybe exploded otherwise? Who's to say? For all we know, the boiler was old, and it was going to blow no matter what they did. But even still, there should not have been that many people on the Sultana. Now, the only thing you can think, this is laziness. People didn't want to use more than one boat, or didn't want to make more than one trip. Because, well, they're prisoners of war, we just want to get them home. Or maybe even they thought, oh, well, we just want to get home fast, who cares about the risk? But you always got to take that into account, the risk. It's always a risk when you do this kind of things. And you always want to be safe rather than sorry. At least follow the guidelines for the ship. don't overload a ship. A ship can only do so much. You know, it can only do so much. When you push it to where it can't do no more, that's on you. And I'm sure many people thought that quite fervently. Um, Whenever a maritime disaster happens, specifically in regards to returning or even taking prisoners of war, and then you don't follow the guidelines because, oh, it's a prisoner of war, and they die, that's on you. You should have thought about that. And I get a lot of people would say at that time, especially, oh, well, they're the enemy. Who cares? But it does matter, you know? If you treat your enemy right, maybe you can change their opinion of you and potentially change the whole reason this conflict is starting. You can maybe end it before it even continues. But who knows? Maybe not. And you can't necessarily always predict when these things are going to happen. Like I said, water, very, very unpredictable. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you have any ways I can improve these videos, leave a comment down below. I read all your comments. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.